You're 5 months pregnant with my baby and working as a stripper?
Yes, and I'm owning it.
The bass thundered through the underground club as Joon's polished shoes clicked against marble floors slick with champagne and broken promises. His jaw clenched so tight his molars ached. The tip had come from Min-ho, his second-in-command, 3 hours ago. A grainy photo on his phone. A woman who looked impossibly like her. It couldn't be Amina. His Amina wouldn't be here. But the moment the spotlight caught her, everything inside him shattered and reassembled wrong. She moved like liquid gold under the crimson lights, her skin gleaming, her body wrapped in fabric that left little to imagination. But it was the curve of her belly, unmistakable even in the dim glow, that made his blood run cold and then boiling hot. 5 months. Maybe more. His feet carried him forward before his brain caught up. Bodyguards peeled away from the walls, recognizing the murder in his eyes. Patrons scattered. The music didn't stop, but it might as well have. The only sound Joon could hear was his heartbeat slamming against his ribs like fists against a cell door. Amina's eyes found his, and he watched her freeze mid-movement. Recognition flickered across her face, then fear, then something harder. Defiance. "Get down," he said, his voice cutting through the music like a blade. Now. She didn't move. Her chin lifted, and for a moment, they were locked in a battle of wills that transcended the chaos around them. Then her hand moved protectively to her stomach, and Joon saw red. He vaulted onto the stage. Gasps erupted. Someone killed the music. In the sudden silence, his breathing sounded ragged, desperate. "You're 5 months pregnant with my baby," he said, each word dropping like stones into still water, "and you're working as a stripper?" The question exploded from him, not a question at all but an accusation, a howl of disbelief and rage and heartbreak all twisted together. His hands shook. He'd killed men with these hands. He'd built an empire with them. But right now, they trembled like a child's. Amina's eyes flashed. "Your baby?" Her laugh was sharp enough to draw blood. "Your baby? You disappeared, Joon. You vanished like smoke. No calls. No texts. Nothing. I thought you were dead. I thought," her voice cracked, and she pressed her lips together hard. "Come with me." He reached for her, but she stepped back. "I'm not going anywhere with you." "The hell you aren't." He moved closer, and this time when he reached for her arm, she let him, but only because his grip was gentle despite the steel in his voice. "We're talking. Now." Backstage. The club manager, a weasel of a man named Park, started to protest. One look from Joon silenced him. Everyone knew who he was. Everyone knew what he was capable of. The Red Dragon Syndicate didn't play games. Backstage smelled like cheap perfume and desperation. Joon kicked the door shut behind them, and suddenly the space felt too small, too intimate. Amina wrapped her arms around herself, and he could see her properly now. The swell of her belly beneath the thin robe she'd grabbed. The exhaustion carved into her beautiful face. The way she wouldn't quite meet his eyes. "How long have you been doing this?" His voice came out strangled. 3 months. She lifted her chin. "Since I ran out of money. Since I couldn't find any other work. Since I realized the father of my child was either dead or didn't give a damn. I was in a coma." The words burst from him. "Chen's coup. He had me stabbed outside the warehouse in Itaewon. 17 times, Amina. I was clinically dead for 4 minutes. When I woke up 2 months later, I couldn't risk contacting you. They were still hunting for weaknesses. Anyone close to me was a target." Her expression shifted, walls cracking. "You expect me to believe that?" He yanked up his shirt. The scars were still angry and red, crisscrossing his abdomen like a roadmap of violence. Her hand flew to her mouth. "I kept you away to keep you safe," he said quietly. "I thought if they didn't know about you, you'd be untouchable. I had Minho watching you from a distance, but then you moved, and we lost track, and," he stopped, his throat closing. "And now you're here. Pregnant. Working in a place where any one of my enemies could find you." Amina's eyes filled with tears, but she blinked them back fiercely. I didn't have a choice, Joon. Do you know what it's like? Being pregnant and alone in a country where you barely speak the language? I went to 12 job interviews. 12. They took one look at me, at my belly, and said no. The club was the only place that didn't care. Guilt crashed over him like a wave. He'd been so focused on protecting her by staying away that he'd never considered she might need protection from the world itself. You should have called me. I tried. Her voice rose. Your number was disconnected. I went to your apartment. New people lived there. It was like you never existed. I thought, she pressed her hand to her belly. I thought maybe you'd lied about everything. About us. About caring. Never. He closed the distance between them, his hands hovering near her shoulders but not quite touching. Everything between us was real. The most real thing in my entire goddamn life. She looked up at him, and for the first time, he saw past the anger to the hurt beneath. The fear. The loneliness of carrying a child who might never know their father. Come home with me, he said softly. Please. Let me take care of you. Both of you. I don't need taking care of. I know you don't. His voice turned cold. But I'm not the kind of man to abandon my child. He finally let himself touch her, his fingers gentle on her cheek. I've made a lot of mistakes, Amina. But I will not be a deadbeat father. As long as you're pregnant with my child, you will come under my care and control. No more questions. She searched his face for a long moment, and he let her see everything. The control. The order. The desperate need to protect her. Finally, slowly, she nodded, accepting her fate. The drive to Joon's estate took 40 minutes through Seoul's glittering nightscape, but it felt like hours. Amina sat rigid in the passenger seat of his black Mercedes, her hands folded protectively over her belly. Minho drove while Joon sat in the back with her, his presence overwhelming in the confined space. You need to eat, Joon said, breaking the silence. When did you last have a proper meal? I eat. That's not what I asked. She turned to glare at him. Yesterday. I had ramen and an apple. It's all I could afford after paying rent. His jaw tightened. Starting tomorrow, you eat 3 meals a day. For if the doctor says so. And we're getting you a doctor. A good one. The best in Seoul. I have a doctor. The free clinic in Itaewon. Not anymore. His tone left no room for argument, but Amina had never been good at backing down. You don't get to just waltz back in and start making decisions about my life, Joon. I've been handling things on my own. I don't need you to. I know you don't need me. His voice dropped, rough with emotion. But I need you. And our baby needs both of us. He reached across the seat, his hand covering hers. Now, don't you ever question me again. The edge in his voice disarmed her. This was not the Joon she remembered from their stolen nights together. The man who'd held her close and whispered poetry in Korean, then translated it clumsily into English while she laughed. He was back to being the cold mafia boss everyone feared. And she wasn't sure she loved or even liked him this way. The estate materialized like something from a dream. High walls, security cameras every few meters, guards stationed at intervals that spoke of paranoia or necessity or both. The main house was modern, all glass and clean lines, perched on a hillside overlooking the city. This is where you live? Amina breathed. This is where we live now. Joon helped her from the car, his hands steady on her lower back. Every entrance is monitored. 12 guards on rotation. No one gets in without my permission. Inside, the house was surprisingly warm. Heated floors, soft lighting, furniture that looked comfortable rather than ostentatious. A woman in her 50s appeared from a side hallway, her face breaking into a smile when she saw Joon. Ajumma, Joon said, and there was genuine affection in his voice. This is Amina. She'll be staying here. Permanently. The woman's eyes dropped to Amina's belly, and her smile widened. She said something in rapid Korean, and Joon laughed, actually laughed, for the first time since he'd found her. She says you're too thin and she's making you soup immediately. He translated. Meet Mrs. Kong. She's run this house since I was 12. Fair warning, she's going to spoil you relentlessly. Enjoy it. It's something I'll probably never do. Mrs. Kong bustled forward, taking Amina's hands and chattering in Korean. Despite not understanding the words, Amina felt the warmth in them. The acceptance. I'll show you to your room, Joon said. You must be exhausted. The bedroom was larger than her entire apartment. A king-sized bed dominated the space, and French doors opened onto a private balcony. But it was the adjoining room that made Amina's breath catch. A nursery, already partially set up with a crib and changing table. I had Minho start on this before we lost track of you, Joon admitted quietly. I knew you were pregnant. I was going to reach out once I'd eliminated the last of Chen's loyalists. I just needed a few more weeks to make sure it was safe. Amina sank onto the edge of the bed, overwhelmed. This is too much. All of this. It's not enough. He looked at her, lips twitching as he struggled to get a grip of his feelings. He loved her, but from experience, love always came with a heavy price, and Joon was not sure he wanted to pay that price, but she seemed so worth it. So, in spite of his conflicting emotions, he allowed himself to become weak before her. He knelt in front of her, his hands resting gently on her knees. I missed 4 months of your pregnancy. 4 months of you struggling alone. I can't get that time back, but I can make sure you never struggle with my baby again. She wanted to stay angry. Anger was easier than the complicated tangle of emotions threatening to choke her. But looking at his face, seeing the raw sincerity there, her defenses crumbled. I was so scared, she whispered. When you disappeared. When I found out I was pregnant. When I couldn't find work. I thought about going back to Chicago, but I couldn't afford the ticket. I thought about, she stopped, unable to finish. What? His voice was carefully controlled, but she saw the tension in his shoulders. There's a clinic. Near Hongdae. They offer services for women who can't, who don't. The tears she'd been holding back finally spilled over. I went there twice. Sat in the waiting room. But I couldn't do it. Every time I tried to go through with it, I'd think about you. About us. About that night at Namsan Tower when you told me you'd never felt this way about anyone. Joon's hands tightened on her knees. Thank you, he said hoarsely. Thank you for choosing to keep our baby. Even when you thought I'd abandoned you. I'm still angry at you, she said, but there was no heat in it. You should be. I'd be angry too. He reached up, wiping her tears with his thumbs. But I'm here now. And I'm not going anywhere. Not ever again. A knock interrupted them. Minho stood in the doorway, his expression grim. Boss. We need to talk. Joon's entire demeanor shifted, the gentle lover replaced by the dangerous man who commanded respect through fear. Not now. It's about Chen's brother. He knows. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Amina felt Joon tense, saw the calculation flash across his face. How? Someone at the club recognized her. Words already spreading. Chen Dae-young is making moves. He wants revenge for his brother, and he's decided the best way to hurt you is through her. Amina's hand moved instinctively to her belly. Who's Chen Dae-young? The man who's going to regret ever hearing your name, Joon said darkly. He stood, his hand moving to the gun at his hip. Double the guards. I want eyes on every entrance. Set up the safe room. Already done. Good. Joon turned back to Amina, and his expression softened marginally. You're safe here. I promise. No one touches you. No one even looks at you wrong. But Amina had seen the fear flash across his face before he'd hidden it. She knew what this meant. She'd just become his greatest weakness. And in his world, weaknesses got people killed. The next 72 hours passed in a blur of heightened security and mounting tension. Amina barely saw Joon except in passing as he coordinated with his men, made calls in clipped Korean, and disappeared into his office for hours at a time. Mrs. Kong became her constant companion, force-feeding her homemade soups and kimchi despite the language barrier, communicating through gestures and warm smiles that transcended words. On the third night, Amina couldn't sleep. The baby had been active all evening, tiny feet pressing against her ribs. She wandered downstairs around 2 in the morning, drawn by a light in Joon's study. He sat behind a massive desk, his shirt sleeves rolled up, a tumbler of whiskey untouched beside him. Papers covered every surface. When he looked up and saw her, exhaustion and relief warred on his face. "You should be sleeping," he said. "So should you." She moved into the room, taking in the maps, the photographs, the files with names she couldn't read. "Is it really that bad?" "It's manageable." But the tightness around his eyes told a different story. "Don't lie to me, Joon. Not about this." He leaned back in his chair, studying her for a long moment. Finally, he gestured to the chair across from him. Chen Dae-young isn't like his brother. Chen Wei was ambitious but sloppy. Dae-young is patient. Strategic. He's been building his own syndicate in Busan for the last 5 years, waiting for the right moment to move against me. And I'm the right moment. You're the catalyst. He picked up a photograph, slid it across the desk. A man in his 40s, sharp-featured, with cold eyes. "He's put a bounty on you. Not to kill. To capture. He wants to use you and the baby as leverage to force me out of Seoul." Amina's blood ran cold. "How much?" 500 million won. Her hands shook. "That's almost $500,000. Which means every 2-bit criminal in the city is suddenly very interested in a pregnant black woman." Joon's voice hardened. "But they won't get close. I've called in favors. The Yakuza in Tokyo owe me. The triads in Hong Kong owe me. Even the Russians have agreed to stay neutral. Dae-young is going to find himself very alone very quickly. You're starting a war over me. I'm ending one." He stood, moving around the desk to crouch beside her chair. "This was always coming, Amina. Chen Wei's death left a power vacuum. Dae-young would have moved eventually. You didn't cause this. You just gave me something worth fighting for beyond territory and pride." She touched his face, feeling the stubble rough against her palm. "I'm terrified." "Good. Fear keeps you alert." He turned his head, kissing her palm. "But I need you to trust me. Can you do that?" Before she could answer, Minho burst through the door. "Boss, we have a problem." Joon was on his feet instantly. "Talk." "Someone breached the south wall. Guards are down. Not dead, tranquilized. Professional work." Minho's eyes cut to Amina. "They're inside the grounds." Everything happened at once. Joon grabbed Amina's arm, hauling her up. "The safe room. Now." "What about you?" "I'll handle this." He was already moving, pulling a gun from his desk drawer, checking the chamber with practiced efficiency. "Minho, get her to the panic room and lock it down. Code 7 protocol." The house erupted into controlled chaos. Alarms blared. Red emergency lights bathed everything in crimson. Mrs. Kong appeared from nowhere, her face pale but determined, ushering Amina toward a hidden panel in the hallway wall. "Wait." Amina twisted in Minho's grip. "Joon." He looked back, and for a heartbeat, their eyes met. "I love you," he said, clear and certain despite the chaos. "I should have said it months ago. I'm saying it now. I love you, Amina Clark, and I'm not losing you." Then he was gone, disappearing down the corridor with 4 armed men at his back. The safe room was behind a false wall in the master bedroom, accessible only through biometric scanning. Minho pressed his palm to the panel, then his eye to the scanner. The wall slid open, revealing a room that looked like something from a spy movie. Reinforced steel walls, monitors showing every angle of the estate, weapons mounted in glass cases, and enough supplies to last weeks. "Stay here," Minho ordered, guiding her and Mrs. Kong inside. "Don't open this door for anyone except Joon or me. The code to unlock from inside is your birthday. Day, month, year." Joon programmed it himself. "How did you know my birthday?" Something that might have been a smile flickered across Minho's stern face. Boss has known everything about you since the night you met. He ran a full background check before your second date. When he didn't find anything, he knew you were the real deal. Then he was gone, and the door sealed with a hiss of hydraulics. Mrs. Kang immediately started fussing over Amina, settling her into a chair, bringing her water despite Amina's protests. The older woman's hands trembled slightly, betraying her fear, but her face remained calm. On the monitors, Amina watched the nightmare unfold. 6 figures in black tactical gear moved through her home with military precision. Joon's men engaged them in the main hall. Gunfire lit up the screens. She watched Joon move like a dancer, efficient and deadly, taking down one intruder with a shot to the shoulder, another with a brutal strike to the throat. But then she saw it. A 7th figure, smaller than the others, slipping through a side entrance. Heading straight for the bedroom corridor. Heading for them. Mrs. Kang, Amina whispered, pointing at the screen. The older woman's eyes widened. She said something urgent in Korean, moving to one of the weapon cases. Her hands weren't shaking anymore as she pulled out a handgun, checked it with the ease of long practice, and positioned herself between Amina and the door. You know how to use that? Amina asked. Mrs. Kang smiled, and it was fierce. She said something in Korean, and though Amina didn't understand the words, the meaning was clear. I've been protecting this family longer than you've been alive, child. I'm not stopping now. On the monitor, the figure reached the bedroom. Searched. Found the hidden panel. Started working on the lock. Amina's heart hammered. The baby kicked, hard, as if sensing her fear. She wrapped both arms around her belly protectively. The panel beeped. Once. Twice. Mrs. Kang's finger moved to the trigger. The door started to slide open. Before we continue, if you're enjoying this story, please like, share and subscribe to keep enjoying more stories like this. The figure that stepped through wasn't what Amina expected. Small, wary, with a woman's build beneath the tactical gear. She moved into the safe room with her weapon raised, scanning left to right with professional efficiency. Then she stopped, and slowly raised her hands. Don't shoot, she said in accented English. I'm not here to hurt anyone. Mrs. Kang didn't lower her gun. She barked something in Korean, sharp and commanding. The woman responded in the same language, her tone placating. She reached up slowly, removing her mask. Amina gasped. The woman was young, maybe 30, with a scar running from her eyebrow to her cheekbone and eyes that had seen too much violence. My name is Yuki, she said, switching back to English. I was sent by Chun Dae-young, but not to harm you. To warn you. Warn me. Amina's voice came out steadier than she felt. You broke into my home with armed men. Those aren't my men. They're Dae-young's. I'm Japanese Yakuza, on loan from the Yamamoto family in Tokyo. Yuki's eyes were urgent. Joon called in his favor with my oyabun 3 days ago. I was sent to infiltrate Dae-young's operation and feed intelligence back to Joon. But something's changed. Tonight was supposed to be a reconnaissance mission. Dae-young told us to scout the defenses, nothing more. But those men out there? They're not here to scout. They have kill orders. For who? But Amina already knew. For Joon. Dae-young doesn't want leverage anymore. He wants blood. He's decided that making you a widow before you're even a bride sends a stronger message to the other syndicates. Yuki took a step closer, ignoring the way Mrs. Kang's gun tracked her movement. There's a sniper on the ridge overlooking the south garden. That's where Joon is heading right now. He doesn't know. Amina's world tilted. How do I warn him? You can't. Communications are jammed. That's why I came here directly. Yuki pulled a phone from her vest, tapped a code, and held it out. This is on a secure frequency. It'll reach Minho. Tell him about the sniper. Code word is Sakura. He'll know I sent it and that the intel is good. Mrs. Kang lowered her weapon slightly, studying Yuki with shrewd eyes. She asked a question in Korean. Yuki answered, and whatever she said made the older woman nod and step aside. Amina grabbed the phone with shaking hands. It rang twice before Minho answered. Who is this? It's Amina. Yuki sent me. Code word Sakura. There's a sniper on the south ridge. Joon's walking into a trap. Minho's curse was creative and multilingual. Stay in the safe room. I'm moving now. The line went dead. On the monitors, Amina watched Minho break away from the fight in the main hall, running toward the south wing where Joon had gone. 2 of Joon's men followed. Can we access the south garden cameras? Amina demanded. Yuki moved to the control panel, her fingers flying over the keys. New screens flickered to life. The garden appeared in infrared, and there was Joon, moving between the sculptured trees with 3 of his men, hunting the intruders who'd scattered outside. And there, barely visible on the ridge 800 meters away, was the sniper. The scope glinted in the moonlight. He's lining up the shot, Yuki said quietly. Amina couldn't breathe. The baby kicked frantically, picking up on her panic. She pressed her hand to her belly, whispering, "Not now, baby. Please not now." On screen, Joon paused, his head tilted as if listening. Then he moved, fast, diving behind a stone fountain. The fountain exploded where his head had been seconds before, chunks of marble flying. He sensed it, Yuki breathed. Incredible. But the sniper was adjusting, tracking Joon's new position. And Joon was pinned, unable to move without exposing himself. His men were too far away to provide cover. Minho was still 30 seconds out. There has to be something we can do, Amina said desperately. Yuki's eyes were calculating. The estate has automated defenses. Floodlights. They'd blind the sniper's scope, ruin his night vision, buy Joon time to relocate. Where's the control? Here. Yuki pointed to a panel. But activating them will also illuminate Joon. 3 seconds of exposure before the sniper is blinded. It's a hell of a gamble. 3 seconds. An eternity for a trained sniper. Amina's hand hovered over the control. Every instinct screamed at her to wait for Minho, wait for someone who knew what they were doing. But Minho was still 20 seconds out, and the sniper's finger was moving to the trigger. She slammed her palm down on the button. The south garden erupted in blinding white light. On infrared, it was like a sun exploding. Amina watched Joon react instantly, rolling from behind the fountain and sprinting for the tree line. 1 second. 2 seconds. The sniper's scope flared on the monitor as the light hit it. 3 seconds. Joon disappeared into the shadows between the trees. The sniper fired, but the shot went wide, hitting dirt. Minho burst into the garden, his men flanking him. They laid down suppressing fire toward the ridge. Joon emerged from the trees, and even through the cameras, Amina could see he was furious and alive. She collapsed into the chair, her whole body shaking. Mrs. Kong was beside her immediately, checking her pulse, speaking soothing words in Korean. "You just saved his life," Yuki said, and there was respect in her voice. Quick thinking. "I'll inform my Oyabun that Joon chose his woman well." "I need to see him," Amina said. "I need." The safe room door opened. Joon stood there, blood on his shirt sleeve, dirt on his face, his eyes wild until they found her. Then something in him broke and reassembled. He crossed the room in 3 strides and dropped to his knees in front of her, his arms wrapping around her waist, his face pressed against her belly. "You activated the lights," he said, his voice muffled. "Minho told me. You saved my life. You saved mine first. We're even." Her hands moved to his hair, holding him close. "Are you hurt?" "Grazed." "Nothing serious." He looked up at her, and his eyes were bright with unshed tears. "I could have died tonight. I could have left you alone again. Left our baby. But you didn't." She cupped his face. "You're here. We're here. That's what matters." Joon stood, pulling her up with him, holding her so carefully it made her chest ache. "This ends now," he said quietly. "No more waiting. No more being strategic. Chen Dae-young wants war. I'm bringing it to his doorstep." "Boss," Minho appeared in the doorway. "We captured 2 of the intruders. They're ready to talk. Good. Joon kissed Amina's forehead. Stay here. I need to handle this. Joon. She caught his hand. Come back to me. His smile was dangerous and beautiful. Always. The interrogation took 6 hours. Amina couldn't sleep, pacing the safe room while Mrs. Kong dozed in a chair and Yuki monitored the security feeds with professional detachment. Dawn broke over Seoul, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, and still Joon didn't return. When he finally appeared, he looked like a different man. Harder. Colder. The gentleness he showed her had been locked away behind the armor he wore as the head of the Red Dragon Syndicate. It's done, he said simply. Dae-young's men gave up his location. I have 20 men moving on his compound in Busan right now. By noon, this will be finished. You're not going yourself? Amina asked. No. He moved to her, his hands settling on her shoulders. I'm not leaving you again. Minho will handle it. He's wanted a shot at Dae-young for years anyway, ever since Chen Wei killed his younger brother. This was a side of his world Amina had only glimpsed before. The violence. The revenge. The blood feuds that stretched back years. She should have been horrified. Part of her was. But a larger part understood that this was the price of safety in his world. Mercy was weakness. Hesitation got you killed. What happens after? She asked. After Dae-young is gone. Do we just wait for the next threat? Joon's jaw tightened. I've been thinking about that. About what kind of life I want our child to have. What kind of man I want to be for you. He took her hands. I'm not leaving the syndicate. I can't. Too many people depend on me, and walking away would create a power vacuum that would swallow half of Seoul in violence. But I can change what the syndicate is. Make it more legitimate. Transition away from the worst of it. How long would that take? Years. Maybe 5. Maybe 10. His thumb traced circles on her palm. But I'll do it. For you. For this baby. For the family we're building. Amina wanted to believe him. Wanted to believe that love could soften the hard edges of his world. But she'd learned the hard way that wanting something didn't make it true. I need time, she said quietly. To process all of this. To figure out if I can really live in your world. Pain flashed across his face, but he nodded. Take all the time you need. Just take it here, where you're safe. Please. Mrs. Kong chose that moment to wake, announcing her presence with a stream of Korean that made Joon laugh despite everything. He translated. She says she's making breakfast and we're both eating whether we want to or not. Also, she's decided the baby is a girl and has already started knitting booties. How does she know it's a girl? She claims she can tell by the way you're carrying. She's been right about every pregnancy in the family for 40 years, so I'm inclined to believe her. His hand moved to Amina's belly, splaying wide. A daughter. God help me. God help her, you mean? Having you as a father. Having us as parents. He said it with such certainty, as if there was no question that they would navigate this together. Maybe that certainty was what Amina needed. Maybe it was enough. The call came at 11:30. Minho's voice was steady but tinged with satisfaction. It's done, boss. Dae-young is dead. His lieutenants are scattered. We're securing the territory now. Joon closed his eyes briefly. Casualties? 3 wounded, none critical. Kim took a bullet to the shoulder, but he'll be fine. It was cleaner than expected. Dae-young's own men turned on him when they realized we had Yakuza and Triad backing. They chose survival over loyalty. Good. Leave a skeleton crew in Busan and bring everyone else home. We celebrate tonight. When he hung up, the tension that had been coiled in his shoulders since the night at the club finally released. He looked at Amina, and she saw the boy he must have been before this life hardened him. Vulnerable. Hopeful. Scared. It's over, he said. You're safe. The baby is safe. Amina felt tears sliding down her cheeks, and she didn't try to stop them. I'm still angry at you, she said. For leaving. For not finding a way to tell me you were alive. For letting me think I was alone. I know. But I love you. The words came out broken. I never stopped loving you, even when I hated you. Even when I thought you'd abandoned me. Even when I was dancing in that club, hating every second, I'd think about you and it would hurt so badly I couldn't breathe. Joon pulled her close, and she felt his heart thundering against her ear. I'm sorry, he whispered into her hair. I'm so sorry, Amina. I tried to protect you by staying away, but all I did was hurt you. I'll spend the rest of my life making up for it. I swear. They stood like that for a long moment, holding each other while the morning sun streamed through the windows and Mrs. Kong hummed in the kitchen and the world outside slowly spun back into balance. Hey, Joon said softly, pulling back just enough to look at her. Marry me. Amina laughed through her tears. You're seriously proposing right now? Like this? Covered in blood and exhaustion? I'm proposing exactly like this. Messy and imperfect and real. Because that's us. That's what we are. He cupped her face. Marry me, Amina Clark. Make me the luckiest criminal in Seoul. Let me spend every day proving that I deserve you and this baby. She should have said no. Should have asked for time, for space, for 1,000 guarantees he couldn't give. But standing there in his arms, feeling their daughter kick between them, Amina realized something. Love wasn't about perfect timing or ideal circumstances. It was about choosing someone despite the chaos. About building something beautiful in the rubble of broken promises. Yes, she whispered. Yes, you impossible, frustrating, wonderful man. I'll marry you. His kiss was gentle and fierce all at once, full of promises and hope and the kind of love that survived disappearances and danger and the weight of impossible choices. From the doorway, Mrs. Kong cheered. Yuki, still monitoring the screens, allowed herself a small smile. And in that moment, in that house full of weapons and security systems and the ghosts of violence past, Amina felt something she hadn't felt in months. Safe. Loved. Home. 4 months later, their daughter was born on a Tuesday morning. 7 pounds, 3 ounces, with her father's dark hair and her mother's bright eyes. Joon cried when he held her, this dangerous man reduced to trembling hands and whispered promises. They named her Hope. Because that's what she was. Hope for a better future. Hope for redemption. Hope that love really could conquer even the darkest parts of their world. And as Joon sat beside Amina's hospital bed, their daughter sleeping peacefully in his arms, he looked at the woman who'd saved him in every way that mattered and smiled. Thank you, he said quietly. For giving me everything I never knew I needed. For being strong enough to survive when I failed you. For loving me despite all the reasons you shouldn't. You and Hope, you're my whole world now. My redemption. My purpose. Everything. Amina reached for his hand, lacing their fingers together. Outside, Seoul stretched vast and complicated, full of threats they'd face and battles yet to come. But here, in this room, they were simply a family. Imperfect. Unconventional. But theirs. And that was enough. If you enjoyed this story of unexpected love and second chances, please hit that subscribe button and leave a comment telling us what you thought. Should we continue with Joon and Amina's story? Let us know below, and don't forget to like this video to help others find it. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next story.